This is a red maple that I potted as a volunteer 4 years ago at my property in Hernando County. 4 years ago, it was about 18 inches in height. I planted it out here by the lake, so it has very nice moist feet. And in 4 years, it's grown to about 20 feet. And it's just gorgeous. I love it. It's given me a lot of shade. Even though it's a red maple, I believe it's probably a cross between a Florida maple and a red maple. I could be wrong, but the leaves don't really match a red maple or a Florida maple, although they do have red petioles. But maples are very renowned for crossbreeding. And their leaf shape can be very variable. This maple was here when I moved in, and it's about doubled in size, I guess, in 4 years. It's right at the fence line, and I convinced the next door neighbor to let it grow, and I'm really glad he let me, because it's adding a nice bit of shade back here. It's given me some privacy. I did plant a sweet gum to the left of it, and this little guy in the foreground is a pop ash. So I guess, as you can tell, I like red maples, and red maples grow very well in my subdivision. I mean, basically my street is an island. I have water on both sides. So the red maples are right at home here. Last summer I transplanted 2 volunteer red maples that were growing on the other side of the property to this side of the property. And they've doubled in size in just one season. They just leafed out, and they've got beautiful red petioles. So if you get a chance to get some red maple volunteers and you have the room for them, I would suggest you try them. They're very easy to grow, as long as you get them in the right spot. They like moist sites. And I planted these guys in an opening in the tree canopy, so they will grow faster if you plant them in a spot where they don't have to compete with the other foliage or the other trees. This is another red maple volunteer I brought from Hernando County. They really like it here in the canal because they get a lot of moisture. And I planted two here side by side. Yes, I know You're not supposed to plant trees that close together, but that's my style. I like to plant them close together. If one of them dies, then I have a backup. I can trim them to whatever I want them to be. I mean, it's much easier to trim trees than it is to get them to grow. So I like to plant trees in twos, especially when I have access to volunteers. Maples are just so vivid and green, and they're just gorgeous in the spring when all the new growth comes out. And there's one here that's been here competing with this bald cypress. And I've just left it, because that's what happens in nature. The understory trees kind of try to compete with each other, and whoever can get the most sunlight wins. And this guy's doing his best. It's giving me privacy, and I love trees, so I don't mind it there at all. I actually enjoy it. This was a volunteer that had just come up in the yard. It sprouted next to this Norfolk pine that I beheaded. I'm not a fan of Norfolk pines. They're not native, and they displace native trees. They don't provide any habitat or food or anything. There's no benefit to the Florida wildlife from a Norfolk pine. I much prefer this red maple to the Norfolk pine. And as you can see, this one has completely different leaves than the other ones that I just shot. So red maples have just a crazy amount of variation on their leaves. These are all red maple leaves. As you can see, they can be quite variable. Each one of these leaves came off of a different tree on my property. They do all have 3 to 5 lobes, V-shaped sinuses, and serrate margins. So they have those things in common, but they can be very different in those characteristics. Some can have sharper sinuses, some can have more blunted serration on the edges. So as you can see, they can be very different. So a red maple leaf isn't always an exact science. It isn't always the same type of leaf. It doesn't have always the same characteristics. This one here seems to be one of the more common ones that I see. And this one is another one that's more common. So as you can see, the red maple leaves can be quite different. And you can't always rely on a very specific list to ID a particular leaf. because they're different from tree to tree. They're different on the same tree. This is my neighbor's red maple, and I guess it's about 40 feet in height, and it leans over my property, which I don't mind because I appreciate the shade. And I didn't happen to get the video of the fruit, but it was loaded with beautiful red fruit. This guy puts out a lot of shade for me, and I really appreciate it. I hope he never decides to cut it down. The squirrels like it. They got a lot of maple seeds off of it. These are red maple seedlings that have come up in the lawn. My next door neighbor has a very large red maple tree that produces lots and lots of seeds, and the wind carries them all throughout my property and actually throughout the neighbors' properties. So there are red maple seedlings everywhere. So I have no shortage of red maple. If you learn to identify them, you won't have a shortage of red maple either, because they're everywhere. So they look like tiny miniature maple trees. The main stem or trunk is red, and the leaf petioles are red. And the leaves look like little tiny miniature maple leaves. So if you're in need of some shade trees or wildlife trees, or you'd like to try to grow your own maple syrup, keep an eye out for the seedlings. Enjoy your green space. Enjoy your red maples.